reaching 81.
Right.
As you head into the afternoon, evening, and overnight hours, we're looking at partly cloudy conditions with the overnight low dropping to 57. This is your weather update from the WSIC Weather Center.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on Earth.
All Things Saine with Representative Saine. Good morning. This is your host, Representative Jason Saine, coming to you live from the Legislative Building in Raleigh. Joining me today is my able-bodied co-host, David Coble, who's also in Raleigh today. So we're both in the building here in Raleigh. I said, why not? Let's just do this show from the building today. Good morning to you, David.
Good morning to you, Jason. It's great to be with you. And only a wall separates us over the digital superhighway we have going right here. So this is an interesting setup. My first experience with it.
Well, if you've ever been to the Legislative Building in Raleigh, I often say that it is the greatest Japanese steakhouse you've ever seen in your life. And when you look at it from the outside, you'll understand. It's also not very well equipped with enough AV hookups. So we make do with what we've got here. As you can see behind us both, the crushed granite block that is the North Carolina General Assembly. It's quite impressive, really. It's really the best they could do in the 60s. So here we are. No expenses spared for the legislative building when it was built in the late 60s. But a lot of things going on here in Raleigh. We're glad to be with you today. Really appreciate everyone tuning in, whether you're watching on the social media or you're listening on the broadcast. Really appreciate it. I guess we'll just jump right in. Big news this week, as announced early on, as we all know that we've been talking about, I guess, for the last several months, that the budget has been delayed and delayed and delayed. And this week we finally made headway, got some things unstuck and moving forward. So, hey, we've got a budget, David.
Well, and congratulations. I know that you have been doing a lot of work behind the scenes. You know, being down here in Raleigh, it's been actually very interesting to see sort of the process of what's going on down here. You hear about these things, but actually watching them up close, people running from doors to doors and rooms to rooms, meetings to meetings, getting everything last ticked and tied. And then, of course, I did get to see the ginormous pad of paper in your office that is the budget, and which was pretty impressive to say the least. There it is.
This thing, yes, this is what a budget looks like, folks. That's I know you can't see it if you're listening, but it's ginormous, as they say.
It is absolutely ginormous. But Jason, I think you've been had a lot of conversations going on behind the scenes and everything like that, trying to get this. I mean, from your standpoint, what was kind of necessary to get this thing over the line and sort of break the gridlock, if you will, between the House and the Senate?
Well, as they say, time and pressure makes diamonds, and I think just the pressure of getting it done, just week in and week out of not getting a deal, it just started to mount. Particularly after kids went back to school, we're kind of getting into the fall, and everybody getting into the groove, and then not to have a budget. State employees desperately want their pay raises. They deserve them, and they'll get those in this budget. I think you were starting to hear a lot more chatter. Some members were hearing that. And then yesterday, the leader of the Senate announced that he was backing away from the original demand that casinos and VLTs, video lottery terminals, did not have to be a requirement in the budget. So with that out, I think that's really the thing that just let the floodgates go. And so now we're moving forward at a rapid pace. I've got colleagues in the other building right now looking through, trying to make sure that we get things right in that budget. And it's never exactly right when you get it done. So we'll probably have a technical corrections bill that'll come out to fix the things that are just the wording's not quite right. Or you get different opinions once things are published. And we've gone through revision after revision after revision, and staff does a very good job at what they're doing. But you really are. A $32 billion budget is hard to put together, and so they do the best they can with what they got. And, got it. Apparently, a version was leaked out. I don't know which version was leaked out Monday night, but that also got people talking yesterday. So I think a lot of things just come together, and it's finally getting there to where we get a vote on this thing Thursday and Friday. And I think after that we'll have a state budget. But a lot of good things in it, a lot of highlights. We'll talk about that during the show today. We'll also talk about Donald Trump Jr.'s. He's a maniac on Twitter today. I happened to notice. Last week he was weighing in on casinos in North Carolina, and today he's weighing in on a lot of other things. If you go to his Twitter account or X account, I guess.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was actually beginning to wonder. I was just like, okay, he's either been hacked or he's just getting a lot more bold than what he previously was. I'd like to think he had just been hacked when he was chiming in on the casino discussion here in North Carolina with an irony of his last name and sort of coming down on casinos. I was not lost on me, obviously, but there was a few colorful things going on. I imagine they've been deleted at this point, but I'm sure, the internet is forever. So I'm sure if people want to be able to see it, they can go out and find the screen grabs.
Well, I started seeing those this morning when I got up and checked my phone. So somebody's having some fun at his expense, which is, nobody wants to be hacked, and we're kind of making fun of it. But it was interesting to see. Not what I expected this morning. So back to the budget. Senator Berger yesterday, once they made the deal, he said that this is the best, most prudent way for us to move forward. I think he's probably right. I mean, it's one of those things where we needed to get it moving. I know you've been on Senator Sawyer's show talking about the budget and different things, and we're just getting fatigued as far as the back and forth and trying to get a deal. There's some things, obviously, like every budget that are in there that I don't like. It's not one person's budget. It's 170 people at the legislative building who are putting that together. So there's a lot of good things in it. There's some things I don't like, but there's a lot of good things I do like. So we'll see how it all comes out in the wash, I guess. But we are broadcasting live from Raleigh Day. We appreciate you listening in. Studio number is 844-788-3464 or 844-STUDIO-4. If you can't remember that by the time you grab your phone, love to take your calls. We are looking at some pretty hefty pay raises for employees, on average about 7% for state employees. Our lower ranked highway patrolmen, which we're trying to play catch up really to get those staff get as much as an 11% raise in their pay. So some good things in there for state employees, but also continuing to cut taxes. That part is in there as well in the finance package. It's just overall, I think it is a pretty good budget. We'll see how the debate goes tomorrow on the floor of the House. I'm sure it'll be lively as always, and I expect the Senate will take it up as well tomorrow.
And out of curiosity, Jason, you said that, obviously Senator Berger had said that, the prudent way to move forward was to take out VLTs, casinos. Those, I guess, will those be taking up during short session, or they sort of just, does that stay on the bookshelf until next long session?
Well, as I always say, nothing's ever dead at the legislature. And just because it didn't make it into this bill doesn't mean it's not going to be talked about. I'm sure it is. Part of the complaints on it were that this was something that never surfaced in a bill that went through committees. And that was, I know in my caucus, one of the complaints. It was a kind of Senate-driven idea. Knew it had been talked about for months. I think, I probably was one of the first to announce that this is being talked about officially. And never really got a hard copy of what it was that was being proposed. And then finally that did, get generated, but 60. Never went through the committee process. So hopefully, if it's going to resurface, which I think it will, we'll have a little bit more debate on it and see what happens. You're listening.
As we all know, committees make everything better. So.
Isn't that right? I mean, it's just like a church, right? So you're listening to All Things Saine. I'm your host, Representative Jason Saine. I've got David Coble with me today. We are both in Raleigh. Really appreciate you tuning in, watching, listening. We're on WSIC, as we are every Wednesday. And David, you get to do double duty on multiple shows. But we'll be right back in just a moment. So I know people at home can hear us, but I'll tell you, the fall allergies are phenomenal.
The ragweed is horrible.
Oh gosh, killer. I think I'd rather be run over by a truck. Let's see. We'll talk a little more on budget. I don't want to get in the weeds, because people get plenty of that. Let me pick up the newspaper tomorrow. Sure. stack of stuff. So I think we're hurtling toward a government shutdown then, right?
I was noticing that this morning when I was reading the headlines through Twitter. I think McCarthy's dealing with a little bit of a revolt right now inside of his own party, and then that's never good.
No.
About 90 seconds.
All right.
One minute.
Jason, I hope your listeners appreciate that your dedication to them skipping out on caucus so you could do the show.
Well, you know, I mean, who would want to miss all that fun, right?
I know, right?
One more meeting. To your point about committees, that'd be great.
You definitely don't need enough.
You know, I'm sure they appreciate it. The things I do for you, so you don't have to.
Exactly.
Kind of like scrubbing bubbles.
15.
Stations that matter.
I gotta tell you, I'm afraid to even think about the next presidential election.
Led by you.
It's a mockery of American politics.
This is WSIC News Talk Now.
And good morning. You're listening to All Things Saine on WSIC. I am your host, Representative Jason Saine, broadcasting from Raleigh. Joining me today is my good friend, David Coble, co-host extraordinaire, I guess, on WSIC. You're like the go-to guy.
I'm a free agent.
You're a free agent. Well, you know, like I say, I got you out of the portal. Speaking of football, how about them Panthers?
Yeah, they're not good. They're just not good. I'm very worried. I really was hoping that there would be a little bit more, a little more offense put up with this crew. I get Bryce Young's a rookie and he's got to learn, but it was not pretty on Monday night. You know,
I'm going to say a Maddenism right now. You know, points help you win ball games. It's weird, and the team with the most points wins. That's a fact. And we were not the team with the most points, and we did not win on Monday night. You and I both were at the game. It was at least fun to fellowship with friends, but the
Absolutely.
Game was a little hard to watch. So it was what it was. But on to a bigger game. We are talking budget today. I'll give you some quick highlights. We won't go into the weeds, but you know, people when they think about a budget, you know, it's a pretty big thing. I mean, it's when you think about just billions and billions of dollars being spent on your behalf. We try to do it in a very prudent way, but it is an interesting process, to say the least, of how the sausage gets made, as they say in politics. But in this budget, we've got pretty heavy investments in the state capital and infrastructure fund. It's $1.4 billion. You'll see money coming that goes into clean water and drinking water, $1 billion there. Regional economic development, $1.25 billion. Medicaid contingency, that's the expansion, that's $400 million. Medicaid transformation, $5 million. State emergency response and disaster relief, that's $75 million. This is all in the first year. Information technology, $450 million. That's a lot of computer chips. Federal infrastructure match, $50 million. Housing, $45 million. Retiree supplement, $145.6 million. Transportation, as we all desperately want to see more money spent on transportation, $450 million. And then NC Innovation, which was something that was a contentious part of the budget that finally got solved, $250 million. So a lot of big things, a lot of salary packages in there that will be talked about. But mainly just getting to the finish line. We're almost there. And as David, you said, yesterday was pretty exciting around the building, and today too, a lot of buzz.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the interesting things about it, and maybe you can enlighten me a little bit, because I've always been curious. So, like, presumably, when the vote happens, budget gets approved. Like, does the state have a checking account that all this money goes out of? I mean, it's a big number. So, where does the money? How does the money get where it's going, and where is it sitting right now?
That's a great question, and particularly if you're a recipient of any of these dollars, you start to learn that the process, shockingly, is slow. One, it once we pass a budget, it takes our Office of State Management and Budget time to go through, make sure everything lines up, accounts are it's going into the accounts that it needs to go into, and that usually takes several months. If we get it passed on time, that's usually certified by October. So that'll be delayed too. They'll work as quickly as they can, but that it does take some time. So, and as that, you really have a whole year for the checks to go out. So if you're a recipient, say you're a town that received, water and sewer funding, like the town of Troutman in our listing area, I think it's 14 million, maybe something like that. They won't get that money right away. They'll be notified that it's coming. But it does take some time to get that money out. It's just a massive undertaking. So it's not as if you just wire the money, unfortunately.
Well, it would be nice if it was that easy, right?
I guess so. Although I'd be very afraid of fraudulent activity, so we want to protect against that. But people do want to make sure that they get it right, because once it's gone, and so matching up. Sometimes there's a little bit of discrepancy between. Is this the right organization that's getting the money? That might be two organizations that sound a lot alike, so they have to verify that. I think the town of Spencer and the town of East Spencer, that can get confusing. Multiple instances like that. Just kind of the devil in the details things of state government. It can get a little touchy there.
I imagine it can. I'm curious though. I mean, as you really are sort of the budget writer inside the House in many respects. As you were going through, specifically for obviously our listening area benefits greatly from not only your representation, but Representative Mills, Representative Neely, Senator Sawyer, and assisting in our area. But what were your major priorities coming into the budget session, and were you successful in getting them out?
So yeah, I mean, we really were. I mean, really big part of our priority from the House just going forward, not just area, but really just staying employees. With inflation, it's Bidenomics. They're costly, and it's tougher and tougher for people to stretch a dollar, right? So we wanted to make sure that we got those pay raises out there as quickly as we could, and unfortunately, this delay has prevented that. Luckily, those folks will be back paid, so they'll have something extra once this does finally get certified. This budget finally gets certified. That was certainly a priority. A lot of investment in our IT. Information technology, I think, is a great way to right size government and to get things more efficient. Doing so there, I mentioned the big spend. I think it's $450 million in information technology, but a lot of that is just back end things, that how you interface with state government. So making sure that gets right. Those investments are there, but then some of the fun stuff too. Been working with UNC Greensboro on their esports program, and they've just been phenomenal. The chancellor there, Chancellor Gilliam, is a super guy, great to work with. And he had a vision very early on about what esports could be, for what it could mean for UNC Greensboro. And so in this budget, you'll see that we're creating, with the help of UNC Greensboro, our high school leagues where high school kids can compete. Because there's not really a league. It's not something like a football league or a basketball league that's there was just no pathway there. So we're creating that and using UNC Greensboro as the hub, and then stretching out all across the state, so that you've got your 4-year institution working very well with your K-12, and so that matters a lot. And I think taxpayers can, whether you into esports and gaming or not, it really has to do with STEM, with our science, technology, and math. Making sure that kids are engaged and learning, but then also giving them a pathway to what that would look like into the future. And they've got a great program at UNC Greensboro. Our other schools are participating in that as well. NC State has a program. UNC Charlotte, our alma mater, has a great program. And yep, and even we talk about little things that you get to do. UNC Charlotte's got kind of an upgrade on their esports facility there on campus, tucked into this budget as well. Other big items, in Lincoln County, we had an issue where we found arsenic in some of the wells of homes. It was going to cost a little over $1 million to run a water line to those folks. We've got money for that in there. So that's something that's near and dear to me, and wanted to make sure that we got that done. We've got funding for schools, obviously. And then we've got individual projects for the whole Lake Norman area, which will be, a nice shot in the arm and a good thing that taxpayers can see that they've got something for their dollars.
Absolutely. And it's interesting you bring up esports. You and I actually had the opportunity to attend an esports tournament here in Raleigh not that long ago. Got to bring our sons down, which was, they are light years ahead of where I was playing GoldenEye back in the day. I never thought back then that we'd see what we see today in esports, but the economic numbers that come out of esports, frankly, it amazes me. I never thought I would see a day where gaming would be monetized the way it is, and it would be able to bring the kind of dollars and just the kind of interest that it does sitting down watching people play these games.
Well, yeah. When you think about being a huge production, television or otherwise, however you're watching television today is, we think broadcast television, but television's, any type of connection, your iPad, your phone or whatever people are watching, wherever they're interfacing. But seeing the number of people that are interested in that, one is huge. And like you say, we attend one of these tournaments. There's been some in Charlotte, there's been some in Raleigh. And you see that there's a lot of money being spent in that. I mean, not just the production itself, but, when you think about when these things come into town, the hotels that are filled out, the restaurants that have, visitors who are in any type of city, people, when they travel, they're checking out the really great restaurants in an area. I think the last tournament in Raleigh, last numbers I saw once it came for a weekend, I think it was like an $11 million spend in addition to the local economy and just that one event. So when you're having multiple events across the state during the year and more coming, it really does make a huge impact in the economy of our state.
No, absolutely. And I've got to ask, I brought up GoldenEye. I saw a little twinkle in your eye, so I know that you played some GoldenEye back in the day as well. Were you a no odd job? Like, you slappers only no odd job? Was that the rules, or did you allow people to be odd job?
Yeah, I didn't like odd job. So yeah.
For those who were not geeks, odd job was the shortest person on the game, and like everybody got infuriated because it was impossible to shoot him.
You couldn't. It's not enough target there, right? So that's too funny. When we look at that's old school gaming too, by the way. A lot of the new innovation that's coming too with our technology and our four-year institutions as these kids go into computer programming. It's the kids because they're younger than me, but these young adults as they go into computer programming and so forth. We've invested a lot in not just in this budget, but for years. You see the tech companies that come here to not just the Raleigh area, but in Charlotte. You're a finance guy, the investment in banking and so forth that comes with that. So we want to keep this economy moving forward. I think this budget does that. And again, just when you think about our local area, some of the things that are going to be included, we'll highlight, of course. But we talked about our alma mater at UNC Charlotte. There was a generous donor who wanted to give $25 million. We were able to match that with another $25 million. So big things happening on campus too, but digital engineering being a big part of that. We talk about computers, but hey, you're listening to All Things Saine. Appreciate you listening. I am your host, Representative Jason Saine. I've got David Coble with me today. We're at the Legislative Building. We'll be back in just a moment.
There's more. All
right. I guess caucus is still going. Struggling today with these allergies, man. I'm just not my upbeat self.
Well, it just sets the day rough when you feel like you just got all the pressure behind your eyes.
Well, you feel like you're just not in your normal loop.
Yeah.
as it walks, just get pumped up.
You guys got a couple minutes here.
Okay. Are they in caucus? They're done. right, getting caught up there. Do you want to talk about local? I guess we should probably let the local guys talk about their projects.
Okay.
Trying to make it a budget sound exciting. I mean, it's money, so that's exciting, but it's still.
But
just
if anybody can do it, it's us.
Look at that money being spent. Wow.
Exactly. Look at those billions going out the door. He's going to have a hard time counting all that money, Cotton.
That's when you're, as Jackson says, Dad, you're pretty tight. Even though you work on this, you know how it's being spent, it's being well invested. It's just like, a lot of money.
You want to go over the election law stuff?
Is that on there?
It is.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, that'd be good.
There are some other things going on up here besides budget.
Turns out. One was decidedly partisan.
Decidedly
there.
partisan.
About 90 seconds.
Okay.
How is something decidedly partisan what makes something decidedly partisan as opposed to just partisan?
Or maybe it could
What's
be
the distinction?
undecided. What if it was undecidedly partisan? Is that possible? I don't know.
I don't know. Questions that will plague us for years to come.
Plague me because I just lost it again. Great. There it is.
You're down here doing decidedly partisan things.
I just don't know what to do with my hands.
Like Ricky Bobby.
What do I do with my hands?
What do I do with my hands?
Guess I'm promoting Chick-fil-A today.
I'm not going to lie. I'm a little confused by your tactics right now. So I'm going to keep talking tough till I figure it out.
Believe it or not, 30 seconds till we return.
30 seconds.
Bottom of the hour is always the fun break.
All right, about 10 seconds.
.com and click on the community calendar button. WSIC, proud to be part of your community.
And welcome back to All Things Saine. I'm your host, Representative Saine. Joining me today in Raleigh is David Coble, co-host extraordinaire. Glad to be with you today. We are broadcasting from the Legislative Building where budget is the big talk. Last week, it was no talk, and this week, it's all the talk. So glad to have you listening or watching as the case may be. But, Dave, you were pointing out during the break that there's also some other legislation going on while we're here. Passed some election law language yesterday in the House.
Yeah, and I was actually interested about that because as you were going through talking about it, I believe the term in a couple of the newspapers was decidedly partisan, which I think there's a debate on what makes something decidedly partisan versus just regular partisan. But when I go through, and we've talked about this before, right? The election law items seem fairly common sense to me when I read them, but then again, I'm one of those unusual people that thinks, you should have an ID in order to be able to vote, or that a man is really a man and a woman's really a woman. So obviously we're out to lunch on things like that, but the election laws seem pretty straightforward to me. I didn't view anything in there as controversial.
It really wasn't. We had a lot of attempted amendments by the minority party, which to be expected. Of course, those didn't make it through. We have supermajority, so one or two did, though. I mean, there was some good perfecting language. But the House yesterday passed major changes to the rules for elections and how elections could be audited. There were two bills. One, as we say, one was celebrated for earning bipartisan support, and the other was, as you said, decidedly partisan, according to Will Doran at the WRAL. And it says what basically House Bill 770 would make people's ballots a public record, and Senate Bill 749 would overhaul the makeup of the state and county election board. This is for auditing purposes. So you still have a secret vote when you go into the booth, but having a way to track back and find out, if there is election fraud, and this would protect against it.
Well, and that's what's interesting because, the ability to audit, again, as you stated, right, still a secret vote. It's just being able to know that you voted, right? And so there are instances where I'll give you a prime example. A friend of mine in my neighborhood went to the Board of Elections and just wanted to see, he had gone online and saw that there was not a record that he had voted in the last presidential election, but he did. He said he walked in, cast the vote, but there was not a actual record that he had voted. And so, when you have instances like that, and the great thing is Iredell County does a fantastic job of running their elections, but still the systems are rather archaic, right? And so you need to have an ability, especially technology is outpacing our laws in so many instances. You mentioned cybersecurity earlier in the show and information systems, and the need to invest in those things with, technology outpacing, government tech, or with, private technology outpacing public technology. These are real concerns that need to be addressed. And so having an auditable trail on votes seems like a no-brainer to me.
Well, it does. I mean, people want to be able to trust their elections, right? If there's no fraud, great. And that's what we want. And people need to have confidence when they cast their vote. Just as a highlight, Senate Bill 749 would remove the governor's ability to appoint members of the State Board of Elections. Again, taking out some of the bias, right? As well as all 100 county election boards, and instead transfers that power to the legislature. It also would end the process of the governor's political party getting the edge over the other party with a 3-2 majority on each of the 5-member boards, and would instead create evenly tied boards. In effect, it would end the Democratic Party's control over election rulemaking ahead of the 2024 elections. Again, adding some confidence into the election process. Will goes on to report that it's it's similar to other failed proposals to make similar changes, which Republicans have tried passing at a near constant basis ever since voters elected Governor Roy Cooper, a Democrat, in 2016. Difference now is we have supermajorities in both houses. One of the changes struck down in court an unconstitutional power grab, according to the article. Lawmakers suggested changing the state constitution. Let it happen. Voters overwhelmingly rejected the idea at the ballot box in 2018. Every living ex-governor, Democrats and Republicans alike, banded together that year to publicly denounce the idea. However, Republican lawmakers are trying again, and we'll see how this ends up. I imagine we're probably headed toward a veto from the governor, if I had to guess. He does love getting out that veto pin.
Well, and it's interesting because you all are you're still undefeated, right, on veto overrides?
This session, yes.
Yes, there you go. So I guess at this point, things like this become largely symbolic. I guess on his end, because we don't know what Governor Cooper has planned. Once he leaves the governor's office, I'm sure that there's I don't know that Democrats know how to exist outside of a public paycheck, so there's no telling where he'll end up. But I'm sure all this is laying the groundwork for something else in the future.
Well, we'll see. It is the ongoing saga here in North Carolina. One thing we can be certain, no matter what laws we pass, Durham election boxes will stay open later than all.
And Durham ballots will be found in trunks all across the county.
It's sometimes amazing that just how does this one place just always just have just one little glitch or something going on over there. I don't know. But trying to do the best we can to reform that process. That and some other things going on around the legislative building. Kind of some minor bills, local bills that were passed yesterday. But the big news is the budget, as we say. It will probably consume the rest of the week here as far as the headlines here in Raleigh.
So, Jason, I mean, votes wise, so what? We didn't really touch on this earlier when we were talking about it. Like going forward, like when can we sort of expect, I guess, the final votes to happen, and then ultimately for it to go to the governor? I know that he has signaled a couple of different things that he might veto it or he might let it become law. I know with casinos and everything out, things may have been changed, but sort of what kind of timing are we looking at with this?
Yeah, so the budget itself, we're kind of going through it with a fine tooth comb now. Both houses, leadership in both houses going through there and looking at the language. It will probably go online sometime later tonight. That we'll sign the conference report and have it ready to go online, so everybody can get a good look at it. And then we'll go to the floor tomorrow. It'll go to the House and go through. 2 votes there. You have to have 3 votes on all bills. So the first one's just the introduction. So just saying, yeah, okay, those bills are here. But then second and third reading is what we call it, and we'll vote on that second and third reading. So it'll either happen tomorrow. I know a vote will happen tomorrow, and then we'll make a decision on whether we just, because it is just kind of a procedural matter, to have that third vote. That third vote sometimes comes right after midnight, so it's the third day, or we'll come back in at 9 a.m. So one of the two will happen. I'm sure. Those late night votes, if you're already there and it takes a while to debate the budget for sure. If you're already there and you're 45 minutes away from midnight, sometimes it's just easier to stay and have that vote. I particularly don't like those just because it's just too late for me. I'm not the night owl I once was, not that spring chicken anymore. So I like to get my rest, but that'll happen. And then the governor, I think, has 10 days to either sign it or just let it become law, or he could veto it. If he does veto it, then we'll have to come back in and probably run a veto override.
And so, out of curiosity, is the budget similar? I know that when there are other bills coming through that the legislature is doing that the minority party doesn't like, there's a lot of amendments and trying to derail it from the floor, none of which ever succeed, but you all do have to continually vote. Is the budget the same? Are you expecting sort of the same tactic, or is it really just everyone just gets to talk about it and then you eventually vote?
Well, so as far as process, this has already gone through the potential amendment process when it came to the House and Senate. This is a conference report. So it will not be amendable, right? So that will be, because if it were amended, then it would have to go back to the other house, and it's be a never-ending circuit here. So this is a straight up or down vote, but that does not mean that people will not have an opportunity to talk on it and tell you what they like, what they don't like. So that'll be an exhaustive process, but it is part of the process, and it's democracy in action, if you will.
Will you be making any comments on it because I always enjoy a good Jason Saine speech, because I like to peg the over under on number of movie lines that find their way into it to see if I can pick them out. So are you going to be commenting on the budget?
They do make it in somehow 60. when I do that, and we'll see if I can. It'd be a lot of fun. I generally do an overall comment on the budget, and then we let the area chairs talk about what they've got. So we'll have to work on some movie lines. I did pick this one up from Foundation this week. An infinite number of ways to arrive at the inevitable. I think this. We'll see if we can work that one in. But maybe we'll take calls and see. I always get a challenge word too. So see if we can work a challenge word in. You're listening to All Things Saine here on WSIC. My co-host David Coble. I'm your host, Representative Jason Saine. We'll be back in just a moment.
Keep it right here. All Things Saine with NC Representative.
No, I don't think we say anything that's going to get anybody fired, so that's good news.
Yeah, well, that's that. If you want controversy, that's when we have Larry on.
It's better to let him do that. Right?
Better let him do that, and he is more than willing.
Yeah, he is. Y'all did a good job. Thank you for doing that the other week.
Oh, my pleasure. I enjoy. I mean, the good thing about Larry and I is neither of us have a problem filling dead air. So.
No, and I've got dead head today with this allergies, like I say. And appreciate you helping keep me going.
Anytime. Are you still doing the Roto fantasy stuff?
The what?
Stuff that like the DraftKings stuff that's legal in North Carolina for those listening.
I
with
do.
the players and stuff.
I do occasionally. I haven't done it in a while. Let's see, I think I was doing some NASCAR, right? But then I get out of watching for a couple of weeks, and then I'm not sure who's where. But yeah, I mean, I did pretty good on guessing on NASCAR, just because the tracks and who's better at certain tracks. And even when they're sitting there at the back, I can about guess who's going to end up running up front. So.
I used to really enjoy NASCAR, but I when Junior retired, I sort of got out of it because I was a big Dale Earnhardt Jr. fan. So once he got out of it, I just sort of lost interest.
See, I like Kevin Harvick, right? But he's kind of at the end of his, well, I guess this is last season really, but and then Smoke, always liked Smoke, but yeah, I get it. Well,
it's kind of like I got out of watching baseball, after the Braves of the '90s. Split up and everything like that. Once there was no more John Smoltz, Tom Glavine, or Greg Maddux, I kind of just filtered away from baseball.
Smoltzy, so I got Justin Hill when he was moving from Missouri to Florida. He found a Coke can from the 91 team. I guess it was 91. Was it 91? Yeah, must have been right. 91. Anyway, he gave me that. I was like, that's when I did not miss a Braves game then. You know what makes me mad about the Braves is this Bally Sports stuff.
Yeah.
I do YouTube television, right? And it's because I can, take it with me wherever we go. I can't watch a lot of the Braves games.
Next presidential election.
Led by you.
It's a mockery of American politics.
This is WSIC News Talk Now.
And welcome back to All Things Saine. I'm your host, Representative Jason Saine. Joining me today is co-host extraordinaire David Coble. We are broadcasting from the Legislative Building. Fun times in Raleigh, David.
Absolutely. And I was actually your music has gotten a little more soulful over the last couple of sessions. Originally when you first started, it was straight 90s rap, but now you got a little more soulful feel. Hopefully that's reflecting your calm demeanor at hopefully having a budget by the end of this week.
Well, we're not doing some Beastie Boys hard rock / hard rap intros. We'll have to bring that back though. I got to change it up now. Once we get out of the legislative process, maybe I can get back into some good music and get that out there. Because I love my music and music references too, right? So Representative Brennan Jones and I, if you've ever been with us in a committee, you know how you can use like the titles of songs or lines from the song while making your argument on the floor. He and I both are very good at doing that.
Well, I actually I became an officiant in North Carolina for a one-time wedding for my cousin, and they were insistent that the ceremony be not overly serious, which of course lends itself very well to my personality and not being overly serious. And when it came time to into the I wouldn't call it the sermon, but the charge to the couple as an officiant, I went through a number of song titles and lyrics while I was in that, and it was a grand time. So it's always fun just to see how much you can work in. I know that you have become an expert with ChatGPT and getting random music references into speeches. So it's quite a sight to read.
It is fun. I'm just trying to imagine the Right Reverend David Coble. That to me,
officiant, not reverend.
Oh, come on! You should go a little further, right? I mean, I always thought they should have a televangelism program at UNC Charlotte, right? I mean, because there's money to be made there.
There is, but back then I had the hair for it. I couldn't do it today.
Well, you got to have the hair for sure.
You got to have the hair if you're going to be a televangelist. You got to have the hair.
Well, I know a topic that you like and talk about sports betting. We were talking a little bit about during the break some of the fantasy sports stuff, but there's some language that's leaked into this budget, not from me and not from Senator Jim Perry, that's changing the sports betting law even before it gets implemented. Some folks have wanted to change some things. I think it helps the teams, but it shuts out some of the vendors, I think. So that's going to be controversial, and we'll see how that works out in this budget as well. Like I say, I wish I could be king for a day, but that's not the rules, and so we'll see how that plays out.
What is it? The downside of democracy is that sometimes other people win. I guess
That's how this works. A lot of people say, "Well, you need to change the law." Well, it's just not me. I gotta get some other people to do that with me. But we do have a budget, and we are a buzz here at the legislative building today. As people are going back and forth and looking for those copies, those will be out online at ncleg.gov, ncleg.gov. Later today, you'll see that posted up online where you too can download your copy and play the home game.
Are there have you ever like gone through and like seen if you could randomly insert things into the budget and see if anyone found them, like a scavenger hunt or anything like that?
No, you know what? And I think the press would absolutely kill me for doing that, because they'd be thrown off, because they really do go through it with a fine tooth comb. I've gotten, while we've been on air today, a lot of questions from the press, just as they see different copies. If you hang around the building long enough, you'll pick up some things here and there, and they're all over the place today. But no, luckily we can't play too many games with the budget. It's too big anyway. Certainly don't want to add to it.
Definitely not. But I do actually. So once the budget is done, I guess is the last sort of major item on the agenda redistricting.
That will be next. Yeah. So with the various court cases and things of that nature, and some rulings that have come out from the state Supreme Court, we'll go back and look at the district maps for House and Senate, as well as congressional, and see what that looks like. I've not been engaged in the process yet, so don't know what that will look like. But I am the vice chairman of redistricting in the House. Senator Heiss is the chairman in the Senate, and then Representative Destin Hall is in charge of it here in the House side of things. But we're not anywhere near getting that started yet. We'll do that after this budget is over. So sometime after this week, I guess we'll jump headlong into that as well.
Well, redistricting is a little bit like Groundhog Day. I mean, you would think at this point when, because I think you guys have drawn, 232 different sets of maps over the course of the last couple of years. And it was interesting. The last set of maps you all did, were, I guess you had the special master, whatever, who dictated sort of how those needed to be. And they were supposedly drawn a lot more fair. And then you all got a supermajority. So you would think at some point in time, the Sue Till Blue crowd would realize that maybe it's not the districts. Maybe it's the policies.
Well, it's not a line drawing problem. It's a fact that they're selling the wrong product, right? And but that as it is, that will not stop them from, as you say, sue until you're blue. That has been the mantra for the last several decades. So as Destin Hall says, he refers to me not as his vice chairman, but as co-defendant. I'm sure this one will go back to court as well. Luckily for me, I don't touch the map drawing thing, so it helps keep me out of it. I come from a constitutionally correct district, which is nice. Lincoln County is one of the few districts that is a whole county. It has one representative, and you really can't touch our boundaries because it meets the criteria. So that is fortunate for the folks in Lincoln County, and certainly fortunate for me that I get to represent them and not have to go through that back and forth. But a lot of folks do. I know Senator Sawyer that you co-host with, she was my senator once upon a time in Lincoln County, and then they redrew the maps again, and she became not my senator.
Not your senator, and then went to Yadkin, and then they redrew them again, and she left Yadkin and went into the north part of Charlotte. So she kind of been bouncing around over the course of the last several redistrictings. But you talked about the constitutionally correct. Is that a number threshold, Jason, that keeps you there?
So yeah, so it's a formula, right, based on population, and so oddly enough, Lincoln County since early 2000, I think, has been a whole county district. You have to check me on that, maybe mid 2000s, but the formula, once you figure out the number of people and you divide the number of people by districts and so forth, somewhere it's around 89,000 now. I think that's right. At least last check it was. And so the Lincoln County has grown exactly the same percentage as North Carolina has grown. So I think North Carolina was like 12%. I think Lincoln County grew 13%, something like that last time. So within that margin of error, plus or minus, which is why we're able to not go into a different county and take in another precinct or something like that. So we've just hit that sweet spot for a couple of decades now.
Well, and then obviously everyone moving into Lincoln County just because the opportunity to be represented by you and singularly by you obviously is what's driving the growth there.
Huge selling point. Huge selling point.
So, but you had Coach Biff Poggi from the Charlotte 49ers on a few weeks ago, and I know they got a big game this weekend down in Gainesville. Are you going to make it down for that one?
So I am going to make it down to Gainesville. At least that's my plan. If we get the budget voted on early enough on Friday, then I'm going to make it down and go watch the team down in Gainesville. As a matter of fact, I was on the phone this morning with Coach Poggi, and he's pumped. That was not happy with that loss last week, by the way.
Nor was I.
Wheels kind of came off, and he was obviously upset at the press conference afterwards. But this morning when he and I talked, we didn't even talk about that, right? Because he's on to the next game. So getting the team ready, I could hear practice going on in the background when I talked to him.
That's awesome. No, I mean, you have the opportunity to go into the swamp and play, Florida. That's just huge. We're 10 years in from football, and I got to tell you, I never thought that, when we started, I figured we'd still be playing in, FCS and hoping just to make the playoffs. And here we are in year 10, and, we're in the American Conference. We've already gone to a bowl game. Got a big time coach here that's, really just instituting a culture of, then there's growing pains, right? We've got a lot of stuff to do, and I'm a fanboy for the Niners all day long. I've had my season tickets since they started, but 10 years ago, did you ever think, I mean, when we were at school, no one stayed on campus on the weekends when we were in school, right? It's like you left. There was nothing to do. And now it's like a whole city there on the weekends. People are around all the time.
It was a ghost town. It's by Friday, mid-morning, and certainly by lunchtime, it's like the campus evacuated, right? Because I remember going to other campuses and going to football games and things that, I'd either go to NC State or Chapel Hill or go up to Boone and watch the Mountaineers play, which I still do. But now that we've got our football team, I make every game. Matter of fact, I had to blow off the Appalachian game on Saturday just because I couldn't make it work. I wanted to go to both with ECU, but made it to ours. The excitement, the stands are filled now. The students are staying. They're there. And in that new conference, as you talk about the American Conference, pretty big deal. And then going down to Florida to play the Gators, who would have thunk? I can remember walking on campus. Excuse me, allergies are bad. Walking on campus with my dad after they built the football stadium, and he just was blown away because my younger sister, and I both went to UNC Charlotte, and that campus is just growing tremendously, and that football program's helping get Charlotte on the map.
Oh, it absolutely is. Well, I'm the same thing. My daughter goes there. She's a senior at Charlotte right now, and so I when we took her on her visit there a few years back when we were walking the campus and everything like that, I told my wife, who also Niner graduate, I told her that if you blindfolded me, put me in the middle of this campus, and then took the blindfold off, it would take me a minute to recognize where I was. It has changed that much since we were there.
It's definitely a different place. We neglected to talk about the fake meat conspiracy that we had. You were in my office yesterday when
we did. Yes. Yeah. Well, we may have to like that for the next week because people need to start Googling fake meat in Jason Saine, because obviously you have orchestrated some type of fake meat scandal, according to the caller in your office yesterday.
We should record all these actually and play them on air. But we do get some weird calls every now and then when you serve the general public. Occasionally, you'll get some different calls, but apparently I'm also serving as the Attorney General of North Carolina, which is a new newsflash to me. You've been listening to All Things Saine. I'm your host, Representative Jason Saine. Joining me today was David Coble, the extraordinary co-host that we love to have on. We'll see you next week. Look forward to seeing you then.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
The new 105.9, 100.7 WSIC State.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Great show.
Yes, sir. Thank you.